Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today is Lynette Smith, founder of the Ryder Safe Foundation. Lynette shares everything she's learned about the safety and unsafety of specific dog collar designs. She's on a mission to help educate other dog owners after the loss of her beloved Ryder when he died by strangulation from his seemingly safe collar while at play with her other dog, Skyra. Dog owners, this is an episode you don't want to miss. Thank you for being here, Lynette. I know this is a difficult subject for you, and I know you're here out of honor for both your dogs, Ryder and Skyra, and to also educate our audience. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Let's talk about the love of your two pups. And just they shared a life together before Ryder passed, and we'll get to the tragedy that happened to Ryder. But first of all, just your life in general, your love of your dogs, and they were a big part of your life. You took really good care of both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually grew up in Ephrata, and I grew up around animals from the time, I probably had kittens in my pockets of my bathrobe from the time I was about 2. So my mom helped infuse that love of animals for me at a young age. So horses, dogs, cats, chickens. I need to live on a farm. And so fast forward to today, I had a black lab and a chocolate lab. And my chocolate lab was 4 years old, and my black lab was about a year old. And she was a birthday gift. And
Skyra is the black lab. And
Skyra's my black lab. Yeah, and Ryder's a chocolate lab. And we all went together everywhere. I did things, walks, parks, swimming, wherever I was. You could usually find me with one or both of them on any given day. And they were a part of our family. They weren't just dogs in the backyard. They're like my kids with fur.
So you had all the things that we know are good pet owners have, right? You have all the things that, all the luxury items they have these days for dogs, but one specific item that we wouldn't think would cause any danger to our pets. We see them on dogs all of the time. Let's talk about that.
Yep. So first, my dogs also, they're canine good citizen certified, therapy dog, service dog trained. My chocolate lab was. They have a lot of training. And so through that space, I had not ever been exposed to the dangers of dog collars. And so what I learned in a really hard way is that this dog collar can prove very deadly for one and sometimes both dogs. And so it was just a normal day. I hadn't been gone very long, and I had walked into the house. I had first keys, walked in the door. And as soon as I walked in the door, I noticed something was immediately wrong. I dropped everything and I raced over. I saw my black lab crouched to the ground, and it took a minute to take everything in. I saw that she was somehow tangled with the collar. And then I unclipped her quickly. I realized that Ryder had died, and he had been, he was beyond the point of being able to resuscitate him. And so I quickly scooped her up, and we went outside on the back patio, and I lost my mind. I was crying and screaming. I didn't know what to do. I just figured if I screamed really loud, somebody would come help. And then out of the blue, I looked to my right, and I see somebody saying, Lynnette, Lynnette. And I just kept looking, and I did a register, and it was somebody that I've known for years, more than half my life. And it was my friend Tom, and he said, Lynette, it's Tom. And I shared with him what was happening in that moment. And he said I was going left for a haircut, and something said, go right and go to your house. And so he wasn't even supposed to be there. And he was there within minutes of all of this happening. And he helped me navigate that space, got my mom over there. And I didn't know what happened. In that moment, I was still in shock. And then I realized that my black lab had 2 edemas under her jaw, and she had a cut under her neck. And so we got Ryder taken care of, and he was removed from the house. He was dead when I walked into the house. And so Mark from our local crematorium, who is a saint, he came and helped with that. And then my friend Tom took me to the vet with my other dog. She had 2 edemas, just so broken and sad that I lost Ryder, and so grateful and thankful that I had one dog that survived. I did not know that actually in that moment, both dogs could die. I've had other people reach out to me and share their story. One dog dies of strangulation. One dog dies of a broken neck. And in that moment, I did not know what it was. So I came home from the vet and I'm sitting there thinking like what happened? So, you go to the computer and you start Googling.
Right.
And I popped in there dog collar death. And I just Googled all these different terms. And then I landed on a page called, I think it was called Chinook or breakaway collar. And I read the story about this dog named Chinook. And it was about dog collar strangulation. And so now I had a name, I had something to call it. I didn't know what it was before that. And my friend who came and helped me that day, Leslie, in the midst of all of this, Tom had shown up, my mom came, my friend Leslie brought her there. Leslie kept telling me, you need to share the story. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to share the story. I'm not telling anybody. I'm not putting this on the internet. No. And I was afraid to share the story. I was embarrassed. I was ridden with guilt. I thought if I share his story that, for lack of any other way to put it, the keyboard warriors are going to have things to say and it's just going to be really painful. And so I literally was going to just tell people Ryder was fine. He's just not here right now. And so she really prompted me to do this. And so within a day or two, I sat down, I wrote out my story on our Facebook page that I had that was Labradorable BFFS. And I just posted his story and I posted a photo. And I went to bed that night. There were, I think, maybe 30 comments. I woke up the next morning, there were 1,000.
Wow.
At the end of the day, there were 5,000. And it grew so big. And then I had to step away from it for a while because it kept me locked in grief and I couldn't get out of it because I kept reading the stories and the comments and it kept taking me back. And so I just let it do its thing.
When you're telling a story, you lend your story. I believe in that. You lend your story if it helps somebody else better live their own. That's what I always say. It's not easy to share tragic things that happen to us, but when you do something like what happened to you and to your dogs, when you're willing to be vulnerable and share that, then all of the other people come forward and start to share their stories, and you realize, hopefully, in that experience, Lynnette, you felt less shame and you realized this has happened to other people. This isn't just my error in judgment of something you didn't even know could happen. Obviously, if you knew it was possible, you would have taken whatever steps you could to save or spare your dog's life. So
if I had have known, I absolutely would have never had him in a dog collar. I had no idea. And I completely agree. The more that I had the stories come through, the crazy thing was 1 in 5, they've had it happen. They've either lost a dog, they knew somebody that did, they had a near miss. And I was shocked at how many and how common it was. I had no idea.
And you also wonder, well, obviously, if people knew this, they would take the steps like while you're on the show today to educate people. But you wonder how many of those people had never shared their story because of the same reasons you were reluctant to share yours, just in terms of judgment, especially on a public forum like Facebook. It can be brutal. And you were probably prepared for that. But thankfully, that isn't the feedback you received. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, you have some specific collars that you want to show us. I love that you have visuals so people can see that even the safest, what you think are the safest collars really aren't, especially without supervision. So we'll take a break. We'll come back in just a moment. We're back talking with Lynette Smith. Lynnette, you shared the story of losing your dog, Ryder, and your dog, Skyra, was a witness to all of it and suffered trauma from that. Your dog passed from wearing a collar, unsupervised, when you left just for a little while, left them at home, inside the home. They were your pets. They were your family. Show us again the collar that your dog was wearing.
So the collar that the actual collar he was wearing, it's at home in a case, but it's exactly this type of collar. So this is called a quick release collar. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's called a quick release collar, and the name of it is misleading because there's no quick release. The quick release is at the hands of a human. So I actually have to be the one to undo this. And so what happens is when they get entangled. So what happened with my dog, they were playing, most likely they're biting at the neck. You see a lot of play biting. So they probably bit here. And then when that tug happens, one of them will alligator roll. And so as they alligator roll, that collar gets tight. So her jaw, there's 2 teeth marks in the collar. So her teeth got stuck. He twisted. The collar got bigger. It gave more room for him to twist. And so I hear people like, oh, your collar wasn't tight enough, or your collar was too loose. It's not the too loose or the too tight. The wrong movement, the right moment, the wrong thing happens. And then this becomes a problem. 26,000 dogs that we know die yearly from dog collar strangulation. And that's about a 7-year-old statistic. It's really 1 in 5 people who have a dog will have a near miss, have had a near miss, or will lose a dog to collar strangulation, or who they have.
And so that might be an occasion that you didn't even know happened. It might have happened when you weren't around, that somehow it was remedied automatically and you're not even aware that your dog suffered in that way.
Correct. So when we started doing some looking, I've gone and looked at a whole bunch of different types of collars. What we use now is called a breakaway collar. And I get nothing for sharing this other than I'm sending people to a place that has dog safe collars that are safe. So the rule of thumb is never kennel or crate a dog with any type of a collar. Never leave them home alone unattended with a collar on, especially if it's not a breakaway. And just when they're out in the yard and fences and gates and things, those are issues that can be present as well. And so this is what we use now. So this is a breakaway collar. So this has that quick release component. Yes. So this quick release is exactly like this. They're the same. The difference with a breakaway collar is these 2 components. If you walk your dog on a leash, you click those 2 together. That's the breakaway component right there. So dogs get entangled, dog twist.
Away when you're walking them.
Correct. Collar snaps apart.
Unattended.
Yep. And so the collar breaks away. And then to just put it back together, you just kind of snap the 2 right on top, and then it goes back together pretty easy.
Okay.
So this is what we use now if we use a collar. So it has the quick release. This is how you put it on and off the dog. And then it has this breakaway component that is there to help keep your dog safe. So if you have a breakaway collar and you come home and you find it on the ground, the dog collar did its job. It saved your dog's life. And I just got a story from somebody who lost their dog to collar strangulation, and they now since wear breakaway collars, and their dog was in the truck and the collar got stuck on the brake. Well, they were doing some work outside and it was a breakaway collar. So the collar came off, and so their dog was fine.
So they'd already lost 1 dog to strangulation.
Correct.
Lost another, but they used the breakaway collar. Education, education, education.
Well, and I think the thing I find too,
the chain collar you and I were looking at off camera a moment ago. That's the one we see a lot of, the training collars.
There's 2 that we see.
Correct?
Yep. So a common training collar is a chain collar. Another common training collar is a prong collar. So these can be tools that people use with their dogs in training. One of the things that's really bad about this are a couple of things. One, if this gets entangled and it gets not like all tangled up, you can't cut this with scissors. Your dog's tooth gets stuck. You can't undo it. So for something like this, you need to have on hand bolt cutters.
Which, who does?
And yeah. And the other thing with this collar, this chain collar, I see so many photos of dogs wearing this as a collar with tags. On this tag, on the back of it, it says this should not be used for anything other than a training collar when attached to a leash. So anybody who's recommending this, dog trainer, whoever it is, when they recommend this for your dog, they're not keeping your dog safe. And they should never be on, period, unless it's attached to a leash. I personally don't use a training collar like this, but I do know people do. And if they're going to use it, I just want them to be safe when they do. I don't judge the collars that people choose. I just want them to be educated on how to keep their dogs safe if they put them on their dog.
And you have flyers that people can print out on your website. You can post them in different places. You can share them with
I do. So these flyers are on our website under educational. You can actually even get them from me, but it just has kind of the safety tips, to never kennel or crate your dog when home alone unattended, choose collars wisely. The other thing too, when you're thinking about dog collars being safe in the home, two things. One, the other one's a buckle collar. So when you use a buckle collar and have it really tight on your dog, you have to tighten this to get loose. So when entanglement happens, a lot of times people go into the home, or they're there when it happens, and they go to try to get the collars off the dog. A lot of times people can't. They get bit, they get hurt. So that's another issue with the collars in that moment. And then the other thing too is doggy daycares, boarding facilities, veterinarians, whoever takes care of your dog, asking them, what's your collar policy? I was looking for a boarding facility for our dog just due to some things that we had to leave the area for. And I was really surprised at how many places don't practice dog collar safety. They've got martingales, prong collars, chains. And so for me personally, with what I've been through, I cannot in good conscience put my dog in that space because I know it's not safe. And she could be wearing a breakaway collar, but she's playing with another dog who's not. She could get caught again. And the next time she could break her neck, the other dog could get strangled, because I've had stories where people walked into their home and both dogs died. One broke its neck and the other one was strangled when they're trying to fight away, because it's fight or flight. So they're trying to get away.
Right.
And they can't.
Yes. And were you showing like those bolt cutters, or even if you think about even trying to get in with scissors to cut away the buckle collar, you could most definitely injure yourself or your dog when you're trying to
absolutely
cut something when there's chaos happening.
Yeah. Well, and for a dog collar, like a collar, you want to have industrial strength scissors, because these are what you need to cut it. And typically we don't have these in the house. I have them in my car now all the time because I'm around so many dogs.
Right. So
but
you're in case. So you have it in case.
Yeah. But regular scissors to try and cut just in general is a challenge. And bolt cutters on the chain collar, I can't cut them very easily, and I have really good bolt cutters. So yeah, it's just a lot of things that go with it. And I just want to make sure, my whole goal is that nobody walks into the house to a dog that died and another dog that almost died. And then the trauma and the anxiety that is behind for the dog that survived is really hard too.
So you're here for the education. So what happened to Ryder doesn't happen to others. And then you're here to honor Skyra because of the trauma she suffered, and making sure other dogs who share a companion do not suffer the same trauma.
Correct. The other thing too, I just have to add, another danger that I learned through this, and it's important to share, is a organization called Prevent Pet Suffocation. And so chip bags, food bags, anything that's had food in it, when you have dogs around, you want to make sure that those are closed, that they're not on the counter, because a dog can get their head put, like when they go to forage for the chip at the bottom, they act as a vacuum and they wrap around their nose, and the pets suffocate really quickly and they die. So that's just another mission that's become a part of ours, and we kind of help each other. Just another way to help save dogs. Put the chip bags up, never kennel or crate a dog with a collar on, remove them when they're home alone unattended, and finding those ways to keep them safe. Yeah, and get a breakaway collar.
Yeah, I will send this to everyone I know. Most definitely. Thank you so much for sharing this. I really appreciate it. We're going to take a break.
Thank you.
When we come back, I want to talk about those wings behind your shoulder there. We'll be back in just a moment.
Oh, wait, that shoulder.
Lynnette, before we leave today, I want to talk about those wings behind you and the space that you're in, because I'm loving it. Where are you?
Thank you. So I am in my photography studio in the heart of downtown Wenatchee in the Morris Building.
So the wings I like. And what type of photography do you do?
So I do business headshots, corporate branding, and then I also specialize in photographing women. That's kind of my genre. And I have a project right now called 40 over 40, where I'm photographing 40 women over the age of 40, because I feel we get better with age.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And as a 51-year-old myself, when we were talking off air, I thought, so do you do a lot of retouching, or do you take us as we are? What, for people who are thinking, I want to do my pictures, I think it's just a matter of you knowing how to photograph a person who may not be as comfortable with themselves to see pictures that they really love and see how beautiful they are, and that we do get better with age.
So when you come into my studio for the 40 over 40, we have hair and makeup included with the session fee. We do the session, and at the end, we do a reveal where we go through the photos. So you get to see your photos right after, unedited, untouched. And I shoot what we like to call clean in camera. So it looks pretty ready when we're done. The editing is determined on where you want it to be. So if you want to have it untouched and straight out of camera, we can do that. I have some that like it a little bit retouched, and then I have some that want a little bit of extra. So it's really dependent on what my client wants. But ultimately, my goal is that when you look at yourself in the mirror and how you view yourself is one way. And when your loved ones look at you, they see you for the beautiful, amazing, strong person that you are. So my goal is to reflect that with the help of my camera and my lens, is to photograph you authentically as who you are and reflect that back through that reveal. So when you walk into my studio, I've had women who have gone through divorce or lost relationships, cancer survivors, all across the gamut. And then they literally walk out and they feel better, they feel empowered, they just have a little more pep in their step. And that's the part that I love. And so the editing and the retouching is a really small part of it. The experience as a whole, I was talking to somebody the other day, it's almost like counseling with photography or coaching, like life coaching with a camera, right? A little bit of a therapy. And they walk out like a boss, and that feeling stays with them. And then at the end of the event, I'm having a celebration in July to celebrate the women who have participated. And it was such a huge success. And I'm actually going to run the campaign again.
How did you find the 40 women? You just put the word out and they came to you? 40 over 40?
Yeah. Networking, Facebook ads, just getting out in the community. The angel wings, they're super awesome. I love them. And I have a blush color and then the charcoal gray, and I'm adding a black color as well. And then I also have added boudoir photography into my studio, which is just the beautiful Victoria's Secret Vanity Fair style that is light and airy, that just really, you feel beautiful and lovely in the photos. I'm just all about empowering women.
For my 52nd birthday coming up.
I think that'd be super fun. Yeah, I have a big, beautiful studio. I would show you the whole studio, but I just moved in. So this part's done and this part's getting ready.
This part's camera ready and the rest not.
You're right.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Lynnette, and for sharing all of the education that we received in this episode. I know that I have friends who are dog lovers. I'm a dog lover myself. I don't have a dog anymore, but I know plenty of people who do, who will benefit from the story that you've shared today. So I appreciate that, and keep up the good work in that, and keep up the good work helping us 40s over 40 feel good about ourselves, no matter our age, or as we embrace our age, I should say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think it's really important for the women out there to know that you are enough.
There we go. Thank you so much. Take care.